Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on the 18th of December of 2019. I am Nick, here along with Chris. Chris, what are we talking about?
I think we're talking about a lot of manga, like a ton of it. Like normally,
Bottom.
sometimes we like start off, we go on some wacky tangent talking about crazy stuff, Cookie Monster and directions.
Oh,
No time for that this week, Nick. No time. We've got too much to talk about.
we have a series to talk about proper, and due to Crunchyroll being the worst manga service, we have 2 chapters of both Eden Zero and Seven Deadly Sins, which means we have 16 chapters to talk about this week in the recap. So, yeah, I guess let's start talking about some Pokemon, Chris.
Yes.
As part of our Pokemon journey, decided that we should take a little bit of a break from just going through Pokemon Adventure and instead talk about a different Pokemon manga, The Electric Tale of Pikachu. Very different adaptation from Pokemon Special / Pokemon Adventure in that it is based on the anime as opposed to based on the games. And oh boy, is it based on the anime! Like the entire first half of this manga is just straight like, oh hey, you remember this episode from the first 2 seasons of Pokemon? Well, here's a slightly different version of it, and there's a little bit of different stuff that happens in it, but generally speaking, I would say that if you are familiar with the Pokemon anime, if you're feeling nostalgic for it, this is a bit of a different take on it, and you would be familiar with a lot of the stuff that happens with during it. I believe that's a relatively fair beginning. There are a few things to keep in mind, such as the guy who made the manga was apparently horny as shit. And there was a lot of censorship that had to be done whenever Viz and I think it was like the same. I think it was the same company doing the adaptation as for Pokemon Adventure in other parts of the world. So I think Chuangyi. So there's a lot of really big titties in the original version of this manga, despite the fact that it ran in a children's magazine that then had to be painted over in the Viz versions. So if you read the Viz versions, you won't suspect a thing. It's a very well edited series. That said, I think that honestly the best parts of this manga were things that I read 20 plus years ago when I got them in, what was it called? Electric Pikachu Boogaloo, which is only a very limited part of the manga. It was, I think, basically covering like the 3rd volume of this 4-volume series. And I think that they did that because that's where some of the original stories actually start to kick in. But once we actually got into them, I'm like, oh, okay, I remember how good this was and how much I liked it. Because the other parts of it didn't really do much for me, I'll admit.
Yeah, so this is an odd series in that when I first read it, my mind was like, maybe the anime was based off of this, and it decided like, hey, you've got some good ideas for premises, but they're really like violent or weird, so we're gonna cut out some of that stuff and make it more like fun. And then learn that it's the opposite way. You're like, I mean, I guess like I don't really know how to feel reading it, because like I said, this is basically like the anime, except it occasionally goes off in different original directions. And that's more or less it. Like there's not really that much that separates it. Not like in how in like Blue and Red and all the other like Pokemon Adventures rather. Not like how in those series they spend a lot of time trying to make the mechanics of the game world work and tell an original story completely. Like this doesn't really try to do any of those. Every so often it'll be like, this is how fucking TMs work or stuff like that. But generally speaking, it's the same kind of universe and logic as the actual TV show. And I mean, it's a nice nostalgia trip, I suppose. But I found myself, the stuff I picked on the most, outside of the really weird one where like a haunter commits suicide in a like refusal to be caught, is the moments where I'm just like, that doesn't make sense in Pokemon rules. Like those two parts, I kind of like. I was just like, they do the classic Gengar versus Nidorino one, and they're like, Nidorino's getting beat. Nidorino, the favorite in this match. It's like, that's bullshit. It's bullshit. Nidorino's barely the favorite in this matchup.
No poison type would have an advantage against a ghost poison type. Fuck you.
Yeah, I was like, does Nidorino?
Oh, it's gonna use his horn drill. That won't work.
I was like, does Nidorino even have ground type moves at this point? This is nonsense. This is bullshit.
And Bite's not even a dark type move until the next generation of games. So fuck worthless.
You. Double kick, more like double nothing.
Let me see here. So, if I remember correctly, actually, in the anime version of that fight, the person with Nidorino has to immediately change it out for an Onyx that'll actually be effective.
Like, whoa, I'm about to get my shit pushed in. How great would that have been if that was
that little Gengar
Pokemon
in
games?
That little Gengar in that opening is fucking awesome because it's like jumping around all anime style around this huge rock snake and stuff. Anyway, so to talk about the actual manga, there were a few parts of this that really bugged me because if you know that a story is adapted from a certain source material and is very closely following the base structure of it, but then it tweaks some things, you pay really close attention to the things that it does change. And some of the changes that are made were very strange choices to me. For example, there is okay, so if you're familiar with Pokemon, then you know that Ash meets the 3 starter Pokemon along his journey. The Bulbasaur is like the protector of this hidden village where there's a human woman who takes care of these Pokemon, and Bulbasaur is the protector of the place. But Bulbasaur grows to respect Ash and gives him a chance to capture him. Charmander was owned by a really mean Aussie guy who abandoned him, and then when he learned that Charmander was powerful, wanted to take him back. And Squirtle was this, rebellious leader of the Squirtle Squad, this, gang, basically. So Ash encounters the 3 of them and ends up capturing them basically right in a row. So there's a chapter of the manga where Pikachu comes across Squirtle, who's like, humans suck. He's basically a gang leader, but he doesn't have the Squirrel Squad. And they come across Charmander, who is worried that his trainer has abandoned him. And they end up going to this hidden village where Bulbasaur is the guardian of the place. And then none of those 3 are Ash's, Charmander or Bulbasaur or Squirtle. In fact, the Charmander goes back with the Aussie trainer guy, who in the anime was an abuser. He's like, I've been looking for you, Charmander. And it's like, well, no, Charmander, no.
Someone help that Charmander.
I know what he's really like. He's not nice. And then literally in the next chapter, Ash unleashes all his Pokemon. He's like, I caught all these Pokemon. He's got all 3 starters. Wait a minute.
There's so much that happens between chapters. Like, astonishingly so. Like, you'll just go into the next chapter and Ash is like, I'm gonna time to show off these 4 Pokemon I just caught. Like, what? Bitch, what? And then but we still spent an entire chapter making sure to show the entirety of the fucking horse race chapter of the series. Yeah. Like, they're like, that one needs to be done in its entirety. We can't skimp on that one.
No, I mean, like, I'm okay with, having a manga that kind of like gives you alternate stories of what Ash is doing on his Pokemon journey. So it doesn't emphasize the gym battles that he has. It emphasizes the stuff he does in between. I think that was one of the reasons why the parts of the manga that were put into the comics that I got as a kid work so well, is because that starts off when he has collected all 8 badges and it covers some of the time in between then and when he like ends up going to the Pokemon League, and he's like doing some quote unquote training by himself. He's doing stuff on his own away from Brock and Misty. And then it tells an alternate version of events that are actually being going on in the Pokemon League. So I think that having like something that gives you an alternate, kind of like look into like Ash's journey is a good idea. Especially because despite the fact that this story has a little bit of a tonal difference from the anime, Ash is still recognizably himself, and he's also kind of a really likable version of himself. It's still definitely him, but there's something about him that I think is really likable. He very much is dedicated to his Pokemon, and also there's a lot of jokes surrounding him that are actually really funny. I think that at its best is actually a really humorous series. There's one part where he comes across Team Rocket and they're involved in their latest scheme. And so Team Rocket are like, hey, shouldn't you be in school? And he's like, well, I'm on a Pokemon journey, though. I'm excused from school. And they're like, oh, we were just like you once. We went on a Pokemon journey and, we didn't go to school. And so we ended up washing out. And because we didn't go to school, we're losers who have no skills. And so you're going to be just like us. You're not going to be able to succeed in life. You're going to be a loser as an adult. And he has an existential crisis right there. And so he's unable to stop them. So there's that. There's
Can we
also
really quick just talk about how most of the time when we've seen Pokemon drawn, you obviously have your Pikachus, your Jigglypuffs, your Eevees, the cute ones. This is one where it's like, if you want to see Onyx, he's a motherfucking rock snake. This is a terrifying monster that will haunt your dreams. Like, this is the shit where you walk in a cave. It doesn't have big cartoon eyes. It's just angry and vicious and wants to kill you. And you're like, Jesus, I kind of dig this. I don't know why. Where it's like half the Pokemon.
The Gyarados in this series are straight up terrifying sea monsters with huge teeth.
Gyarados, coughing wheezing just has dead eyes and floats there. Like it's something where you're like, oh shit, these aren't your mama's Pokemon. These are dangerous Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Ash has a Charizard, which won't listen to him. It's also scary, by the way, but not nearly as scary as the Gyarados or the Onix, because like as soon as it appears, like Ash kind of like hypnotizes it with this like flare thing, and it's kind of go ooh, so it's not nearly as intimidating. And then it gets into the Pokemon League battle that Ash has with Richie, which I think is done actually much better in this version, because it's just like, yeah, so Ash just didn't properly train the Charizard that he had, and so that's why he loses. But it's not because the Charizard decides not to listen to him and instead just goes away and sleeps somewhere. It's because the Charizard goes into a fucking berserker rage and nearly kills Richie's Charizard by biting into its neck. And Richie can't recall it because the system malfunctions, so Ash has to recall his and forfeit in order to prevent Richie's Pokemon from literally dying, which is a thing that happens in this universe. The Pokemon just die sometimes. And that was definitely one of the more memorable parts of reading it when I read this as a kid, was just how different the battle was at that part. There are also more instances, strangely enough, of Pokemon talking in this, getting like a chapter where you just like are dedicated to, hey, Pikachu is talking with these Pokemon, and Poke language is just translated so that you can understand it. It's a lot more common, which is kind of off-putting, honestly. It's all right. I think that if you did not watch the Pokemon anime and don't have any connection to it, then you're probably not going to get nearly as much out of it, especially because it's a series that skips around quite a bit. Every single chapter is very much disconnected from the ones around it, except for like a little bit where they focus on one leg of Ash's journey, and that's it. There are parts where you can tell there's just like, yeah, this happens, but who cares? Because literally, like on one page, Ash meets Brock, and Brock is like, "All right, let's have a battle." And then there's just this full page spread of Pikachu shocking at Brock's Pokemon, and Brock going, "I lost," and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's not a very compelling narrative, but if you're looking for something that's like, I really like Pokemon, I'll look into some snippets of this kid's journey and occasionally have an amusing story sometimes, then it might be fun. It's only like a 4-volume series, so there's not a lot to it. But if you're big into Pokemon, you might get a little something out of it. That's about it. I would not use this to say like, hey, if you've thought about getting into Pokemon but never really wanted to, then this is your gateway. I don't think it is. So,
I will say that if you are saying like, ooh, I really like Pokemon, I want to read more of it, then read Pokemon Adventures before this, because you're getting something different there, and I think that's going to be ultimately more rewarding. You are getting a lot of new stuff in this, but it's all kind of built in a framework that if you didn't watch the TV show, there really isn't like, you kind of need that framework to understand what's happening, because you fill in the blanks yourself. You're like, oh, okay, that's why Brock and Misty are along, because they're his friends in the TV show. Whereas if you watch this, you're just like, I don't understand why Brock just showed up and is just hanging out with this kid. I don't really see.
Brock also seems a lot older in this than he is in the anime. Like, he seems like twice as old as Ash.
And it's super creepy when he makes a joke about women maturing like fine wine in reference to Misty, who like 3 chapters earlier was proudly like, I'm 12. And you're like, Brock, how old are you? Please tell me you're 13, because if you say 20 something, I'm gonna cry. But hey, there's some memes from this that you probably have seen about, and you'll find out there from here. So there you go.
I was not aware of that.
One of the players at Dice Funk uses the Jigglypuff with the berry on its head. That's just like, I'm Jigglypuff, and now things are about to get jiggly rough. Obviously, it's been edited in, but that image is from this manga.
Oh god, something escaped me just now. Oh, I will say that there was one chapter. It's the one with all the Gyarados in it, where there's this character that Team Rocket have managed to rip off. Like she like her mansion or something sunk into the ocean somehow, and so she still has like her servants, including this one guy that is clearly in love with her, and he's this super manly guy who, when he learns that someone out in the ocean is in trouble, he literally just runs across the water. And so Ash is like, did he just run across the water? And she's like, yeah, he's like that. There are some really funny jokes. There are some really funny jokes in this, but I think that there are going to just be little tidbits here and there. It's not something like, oh yeah, you're going to want to read this cover to cover. So, Chris, we have a lot of chapters to talk about.
So let's move on. No more. You got all your Pokemon talk. Pokemon is not going to come up again in this podcast.
Ever.
Give you my word. Yeah, ever. We're never going to talk about it again.
So let's do the recap.
My next recommendation was Pokemon Adventures. How are we get around that?
Recap portion, weekly manga recap. My Hero Academia. We start off with this kick-ass 2-page color spread. Lots of heroes looking badass, kind of alternate versions of their hero costumes. It's the top 10. It's the results of the latest character popularity poll. The top 10 characters from that. Jiro won again, by the way.
Are you sure? I didn't see her anywhere in the picture.
That's because she's in my heart, Chris.
Also, this picture is really fucking hard to read because their numbers are just somewhere on their body, and I couldn't find Toga's, so I couldn't tell where she was. But I was like, I guess she's 6, because I couldn't find who 6 was. But they're not like placed in order of importance necessarily.
Right,
so
and like
it's really tough to tell. She's 8, but she's super far up.
Yeah, Bakugo's is easy enough to find. Deku's is a little more difficult. Todoroki's is like, oh yeah, okay. And then it's like, oh, you gotta look at Kirishima's and see the gray on black for his and stuff. So anyway, uh, so the chapter proper, 254, you could be more of a hero than anyone, is about Prison Mike and Aizawa. Oh, their old friend Oboro Shirakumo, who died during our work study, and they believe that he is the base for Kurogiri, the Nomu. The Shirakumo's corpse was used as his core. That's their theory. President Mike has a very bizarre reaction to this. It's almost like a joke to learning that his dead friend is being used as a Frankenstein teleporting villain monster. Because he goes, "They called us the three Domingos of Class A. I don't get it." And it's quite strange that's put in there in this very heavy revelation about this character. Hey, your dead friend is this guy here. So, but so basically, the point of this chapter is that they learned that the Nomu that attacked Endeavor, it turned out that the body's base was from this guy who was an underground fighter. That was why he was so obsessed with trying to fight Endeavor. So they believe that the personality of the main base, the main corpse that the Nomu is based on, tends to leak over somewhat into what they wind up being. So they're trying to get more information from Kurogiri by having Aizawa and President Mike tap into that old friendship of theirs in order to try and connect with him and have him willingly give up information. In order to do that, they wake up Kurogiri, and Aizawa has to constantly be using his negation quirk in order to prevent him from just teleporting the fuck away. So they do that, and they talk with him for a bit, and they talk about just their friend. And try and, get him to remember stuff. And they talk about themselves and how they have changed. And there is a detail that we learn about Aizawa and all this. If you recall, way back at the beginning of the series, he basically told everyone that he was going to have someone expelled immediately if they couldn't keep up with everyone else. And it turns out that he was more just like going to temporarily expel them. He wanted them to experience the end, to experience death by having them be expelled, always with the intention of bringing them back in. And apparently he's been doing this in all of his classes. Someone gets expelled and then they get brought back in so that they can experience that doom and despair and not be so afraid of having to, put their lives on the line when they're heroes. And he passionately says all this stuff to Kurogiri and says, I want, guys like you. I want heroes who can pull others along to live good, long lives. So if you're still in there somehow, Shirakumo, the three of us can still be heroes together. And that's it. That's the chapter. It was an odd chapter. I like certain details from it. I like how Aizawa's got to, you can see his eyes straining because he's got to stare unblinking at Kurogiri this entire time that they're going into this. There's some details here and there that they're going over that are interesting, but overall, this chapter was very strange and didn't really do a lot emotionally for me.
Like I can appreciate and get behind Aizawa's like conviction here. Like I believe that this is something very emotional and important to him. It's just very unfortunate that all of the backstory to this is in another series that we haven't read, and based on the way this is going, doesn't seem like it's going to really touch on too much in this one. The idea is like, hey, did you read the spinoff? Awesome. Did you not? Read the spinoff. Like that's the kind of like attitude I'm getting. And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't really particularly want to read spinoff. Like it's this is the bad part of comics that I don't want to see you emulating, where it's like, well, didn't you read fucking Guardians of the Galaxy North? That they had a slight crossover spinoff with Infinity War 12, so you gotta understand why Captain America is a zombie now. Like, wait, what? That seems like a big deal. There's no time. Read the spinoff.
Look, it's not part of the main. It's not part of the main event. You have to read one of the tie-ins. But then why did you? Ah,
Why is it in the main story now then?
because it's important.
All right. Is it Eden Zero? I forget
My,
where fucking series go.
I was gonna do Spy Family
All
next,
right, let's do Spy Family.
but then we'll do Eden Zero. So this is actually probably one of the heavier chapters of this series so far. Not a lot of joking around in this one. Uh, it's following up on the previous chapter where Anya wants to get a dog as a reward for getting her Stella Star, and we then met seemingly the dog that they're going to wind up getting, which apparently can see glimpses of the future. So, um, fucking Anya gets taken by Lloyd and Yor to a little pet shop, which fucking Lloyd like was told she wants a small cute dog, and he leads her in front of these huge fucking ugly things that want to eat stuff.
The one I like is it must be like a pit bull of some kind that's so muscular. It's not laying down on all fours. It's kind of sitting up and kind of flexing a little bit. Like it's just like, "Sup, little girl? You want to take me home? I'm gonna be doing some push-ups so I can't lose this pump."
And Lloyd's just like, well, you know, I was hoping that we could make it a guard dog for security purposes. Listen to your daughter. I know she's not your real daughter, but fuck off. She told you what she wanted.
No, man, I'm gonna be a real cute dog. Bark, bark, and shit. You guys got any cigarettes?
And Lloyd's just like, don't they look smart and
turn on
cute?
Sopranos. I want to watch Sopranos. You've
Anya
already
just-
watched it 4 times. It's my show.
It might end differently this way. I'm gonna find out what happens to him. So Anya looks horribly disgusted at Lloyd for this, and so he's got to learn turn to the owner and be like, do you have like smaller, cuter dogs? And the guy's like, well, I guess the drug sniffing dogs are a little smaller. God damn it, Lloyd. I do like that Anya can read the dogs' minds, and they're just like, me strong, me big muscle. Just like, I don't know how they can actually have English thoughts, but maybe they're just like thinking about rah, and that's, you know, the universal language of I am big and strong.
Or Anya is secretly a Rosetta Stone for everybody. So there you go. Could be that.
Lloyd spots one of the workers giving him a little hand sign, and so he's like, "Oh, I'm receiving new orders." So he has to pretend that he's got to take a big dump, and excuses himself. And Anya covers for him for Yor by saying, "Papa takes a real long time to craft, so we should go."
Okay.
And so Lloyd gets driven off, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And this guy's like, "You've got really important orders to have to deal with because there's an assassination plot against Foreign Minister Brantz, and it might happen tonight." And so they say, like, "Yeah, you know, it's crazy, you know, because there's things where, you know, even kids are becoming terrorists right now." And we cut away to where this guy in the Letterman's jacket, who it breathes canine, subtle, has been captured by some people. This woman in glasses approaches and says that they've also caught his leader. And so this guy in a dress shirt gets brought in, and the guy in the dress shirt immediately is like, "Oh, the plan was his idea. I didn't do anything." So they're immediately turned against each other right away. So
it's one of the best scenes
loyalty.
in The Wire, where like a dude's like, hey, like they're interrogating one guy in a room, and he's like, "I'm not gonna tell you anything. Like, we don't need you to. Your partner already flipped. All it took was getting him like a quarter pounder and some fries." And like cuts to outside as the guy, like another guy's being walked through a McDonald's. He's like, "I don't care what you guys did. I don't care if you buy McDonald's. I'm not gonna tell you anything." And then he grabs like a fistful of fries, and they open the doors so the two of them see each other. And the one guy's like, "You son of a bitch! You did sell me out for McDonald's food." He's like, "Oh, oh!" And they just lead him away before he can say anything. And I'm like, that is the best.
So yeah. they immediately turn on each other, and they basically get tricked that way. And it turns out that the guy in the dress shirt, oh, it wasn't really the guy that the guy in the Letterman's jacket knew. It was Lloyd wearing a disguise. Fooled you. And the girl in glasses is interrogating him, and he's flipped, of course. And he reveals that the plan was to strap bombs to like a dozen dogs and send them at the person they're trying to assassinate. And that's how they're planning on getting him. So Lloyd's like, oh, I mean, this is crazy because, in order to train that many dogs to do that, it costs a ton of money, and there's no way that a group of college kids could pull this off. So someone's got to be backing them. So they've got to figure out who is behind all of this. We cut over to the organization that is training these dogs, and we see the bizarre badger-looking dog. I think that people have suggested what kind of dog this is. It looks very odd to me. It looks more like a bear than a dog to me. I love that even these freaking we're gonna train these dogs to carry bombs. Are like, these are some pretty smart doggos.
Everyone loves dogs, man. Even these guys.
No, they don't.
Even these guys are gonna blow them up. Like, who's a good guy? Who's a good boy?
Who's gonna do a suicide mission? You are.
I had a moment today where my brother came downstairs and he didn't see me, but he saw Scotia. He's like, "Oh, there's my little penis. There's my little penis." I was like, and I thought he was doing a bit. And I was like, "Hey," he's like, oh, "I didn't know you were there." I was like, "Wait, so you just call Scotia your little penis? Like, you're alone?" He's like, "I guess I do. I don't know."
But the big fluffy doggo twitches a little bit, and he spots a little kid running along, and he dashes away from his handler, grabs the kid by the back of his shirt, and they're like, "Oh my God, oh, that dog's attacking him!" But then some stuff comes falling off of the building right in front of the kid, right where he would have been if the dog hadn't caught him. And so the kid realizes, "Oh, you saved me, thank you." And then the dog just turns and goes back to the handlers. And they're like, that was weird. That's basically it. Yor brings Anya to a proper animal shelter. There's this big adoption fair going on, and Anya's going like, "Oh, teeny doggies, oh, kitties, bunnies." I mean, like you let a 6-year-old loose around tons of small furry creatures. What do you think's going to happen? They're going around, and of course, Anya spots the big fluffy dog going by outside the window, walking outside the building. And the little dog turns to Anya, and their eyes meet, and of course the dog recognizes her. And so either it has another premonition, or it flashes back to the one it already experienced of Anya and Yor and Lloyd all looking down at him. And Anya reads his mind and sees this, and she realizes that that's what's happened. And so she's like, "Well, I can't just tell Yor that dog already recognizes us. But so I'm just going to go investigate this by myself." And so she goes snooping around. She manages to find the dog tied up with a bunch of the other dogs that are being trained. And oh no, she overhears everyone planning their scheme to bomb the stuff. And then she gets caught. And so the guy that Lloyd was previously disguised as takes out a knife and is like, "We're going to do the only thing we can do now that she's overheard us. We're going to take care of it." And Anya's in trouble, and that's where the chapter ends. Yor has just realized Anya's missing, and of course Lloyd is off somewhere having no idea what's going on. So, like I said, like the least fun chapter of Spy Family so far, because wow, she's actually in trouble, and we're going to have to wait to the next chapter to see what's going on. It's interesting to see that, this dog apparently sees the future, and so if Anya reads its mind, that means she can occasionally get premonitions of the future as well. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this resolves. So,
I cannot wait for when that good-ass doggo saves the day, and everybody applauds him and is so happy for him. Because look at that big old dude. He is the best. He's just the best dog. I don't know what his name is. He doesn't have one. He's my MVP for the week. I don't think there's nothing else that's going to be better than that big fat old dog boy who's just he's the future. He's so good.
Look at those tiny little gentle eyes.
Look at him. He's such a sweet boy. Oh, with his big floofer tail. He dies. That's what he has. He's my little penis. Yes, he is. He's my little penis. All right. let's talk about Eden Zero, because we had 2 chapters to discuss. But it's, and normally Eden Zero wouldn't be too weighty, but these are 2 big fight chapters, so there's a lot to actually discuss this time. So chapter 74 is Weiss versus Laguna. So last time, the hero wanted to become fucking Araki for a little bit, so we had a JoJo fight. But now he's done with that part, so now it's just going to be generic shonen
now
punch
they just
him up.
punch each other.
And that's basically what happens. Weiss, using all of his arsenal abilities, can't actually get past this guy because he blocks everything with his water, and he's still got really good offensive powers because he's like, if you sharpen water enough, or if you spray it hard enough, rather, it can cut through steel. Oh, hey, this, you're using this to try to trick me, but that's not going to work. He keeps basically breaking off more and more of Weiss's armor and basically just push him to his limit. We start seeing like, oh, you're now getting to about 10 minutes now. Shutdown's imminent, everything like that. It's the whole thing of just like playing back into the past joke of like, oh, well, I'm going to get you to cry and that's how I'll beat you. Until eventually it's like, oh, your shutdown's going to be in 10 seconds. And then Weiss gets a call over the line from Hermit, who's like, the cooling system. Activate your cooling system. I'll move it in your suit. So they move the cooling system the cooling systems in his suit to his arm. So he basically freezes the water that's hitting him, and it like chain reacts, freezes all the way up to Laguna, and I guess breaks it, and he can't do anything with it. Then Arsenal just punches him once and gets the victory, which is the way a lot of fairy tale, like I guess hero fights feel like they go. That the hero punches the villain once, oftentimes, and it's like, now you're done.
I have this elemental power. Well, I have this elemental power, and then we'll just cancel them out, and I'll punch you.
Yeah. So we actually do get one really kind of cool moment where Weiss is like, hey, you're pretty smart, Hermit. She's like, you finally see the truth. Getting the idea that like maybe the 2 of them are kind of going to be like a team because it would make sense. And then Weiss is like, hey, now
I'm not all that impressed by the action that caused that compliment to come about. It's like, oh, she thought to use ice against a water guy. Come on, man. He's like,
also, it's like, how long were you getting your shit pushed in? And she was just like, how do you beat water?
She's just Googling it.
She's like, no, I can't say Pokemon again. She's like, Digimon water weaknesses or something like that.
Water Pokemon aren't weak to ice. Come on, man.
Yeah. But they're not strong against it. Their attacks do half damage. So
right.
Weiss is like, hey, change, my friend's back, and he just gets fucking sniped, like straight through the chest, which is kind of dope. And everyone else gets like revived because I don't know. I guess the water dude's dead, so his magic jars explode open. They don't really explain it, but I guess that's just what happens. And everyone's like, what happened to Weiss? And we zoom out, and we zoom out, and we zoom out again, and we see the Flame Sniper, who's like, yeah, I'm going to kill you guys, because once I have you in my sights, I never miss my mark.
It takes me 1 billion years to reload my gun after shooting once, but I'll get you.
Also, I have a penchant to, when I have the shot lined up, take the non-lethal shots first, despite the fact the person I was aiming at wasn't moving. So any number of areas I shot would have been instantaneous death, but I have definitely chosen one he could recover from very easily. Not even ignoring that this is a world of magic robots with healing powers.
I could have shot him through the head, but instead I shot him through the
stomach
rib
or something. Yeah, he's like, I could hit the kidneys, the heart, the lungs, any area you really can't recover from if you don't, you can't recover from. But, stomach shot, that old classic. That old chestnut. Chapter 75, then, is the follow-up, A Wind Blows Through the Sakura Cosmos. And we follow up with our new character, who they haven't really named, so I guess he's just the Flame Sniper. I don't know. Fucking Pino becomes CSI for a moment, and she's like, calculating trajectory of bullet, calculating distance, I know where he is!
She goes into detective mode, and it's like, I need another shot so that I can line up the trajectory of the bullet. Scan it by holding A. Now I can trace the path of the bullet to find out where Deadshot shot this man from.
And then she's like, I know where he is. So the amazing sniper in this group makes one shot, realizes he's kind of discovered, and he's like, yeah, fuck it. Fires again, and they stop his bullet. Shiki just kind of grabs it and uses his gravity to like slow it down to the point where he grabs it and then throws it back. And the guy's like, oh, he looks like you're a gravity user. I don't know why he's British now, but he is. And he's like, oh, they played a smoke screen. And I'm kind of super happy for this because I was like, all right, after the first shot, why did we not do something different? Because you kind of set up the idea of like, oh, there's a sniper hunting them down, and they're in this fucking park as he's hidden somewhere in the city. And then after the first shot, they found exactly where he was, and I was like, oh, is it just not going to be more interesting than that? But Shalazar, whatever the fuck his name is, Sabin, whatever, I don't know, the old guy who was a bad guy in the other universe. Sabir. He's like, hey, come with me. I'm going to take Wise back to my bar. So Flame Sniper guy is pretty upset. There's a bunch of stuff. They're like, hey, Weiss isn't going to die. Probably. You know, we're going to try
We put bandages on him. He's stable.
Yeah. There's a bunch of jokes about Sister using her torture dungeon on Stretchy Lady, which isn't really notable.
Well, yeah, it had to be the girl. You know,
well, the other two committed suicide. That was an offhand joke in the last chapter. They're like, the other two robots committed suicide, so we captured the one woman and we're going to put her in the torture dungeon. Like, yeah, of course it is. That's how hero stories go, isn't it? The only thing that's worth significance is that Sister says, I know what you really are. How long are you going to pretend to be human? They also make reference that there are senzu beans in this universe in the forms of energy drink cans that Sister provide. So Rebecca's like, I'm off. I'm going to go help. And I'm going to get in my little tiny spaceship and let's fly off. So she flies off and then she's like, oh, wait a minute. There's a bunch of wind. How could there be wind in space? And we cut inside the other ship. There's a girl in there. Sylph, the element of wind, who's on the job. It's just very boring kind of shonen action stuff. Like, this is kind of what I expected when it was like, the Elemental 4 here. I was like, it's just going to be a bunch of fights with elemental powers, which are kind of the most done thing in Battle Shonen. And to be honest, Hero never really does all that innovative stuff with his powers. So I feel like this is kind of what I expected.
At least he's doing something that's a little bit different with each of them instead of just like, this guy has fire and this guy has water. You know, like turning someone into water by having them cry. The fire guy's a sniper who can snipe from really far off distance, and it's a different kind of challenge that's being posed. I also like the kind of chaotic element of like everyone's moving around, trying to meet up, trying to prevent people from meeting up and stuff like that. There's also some detail in there about the stretchy girl that, apparently she's not really human. And so Sister wants her to reveal herself or something. But it's like, I don't really care because I barely got to know who she was at all. Also, I missed the guy who could shoot someone and they would die before they'd realized that they'd been shot. But, it's whatever. It's not all that important.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our newer series. Talk about Agravity Boys, Chapter 2, Downtown Boys, Uptown Girl. So
she's been living in an uptown world? Just change all the lyrics to question marks at the end.
I don't know enough of the song to keep this going. So anyway.
I don't know if I even got the lyrics right.
We get a recap of what happened in the first chapter. 4 astronauts think that they're the last guys left in humanity after they landed on this planet because nuclear war apparently broke out on Earth. But they find out that they aren't the last 4 survivors, that there are records of other countries sending out ships at the same time as their own to colonize planets. So that means that there are other survivors that they could potentially meet up with. So they're like, oh, it'd be nice if we could get in contact with them. But, in order to do that, it would be really difficult. And the smart one among them is like, yeah, we'll see. It's not just, it would take them a really long time to get here. It's also that in order to even contact them at all, it would take years to do so because, it takes that long just to cover the space between us. But the strange heavenly entity that gave them the chance for one of them to become a girl so that they could fuck approaches them again. And it gives them the opportunity to have a faster than light communicator so that they could communicate instantly with anyone within a 400 light year radius, lag free. So they're like, oh, wow, our problems could be solved. But it says, however, I want to introduce you to this 17-year-old puffin from the Space Maid Center on planet Alesta, 2,120 light years away from here. This girl will come here once a week to clean for you as a maid, and I will pay for her annual dues and monthly installments, and of course, you are not to touch her. I chose her based on her looks, which I thought best matched your taste. I shall grant you, foolish and pitiable boys, only one or the other. You have 10 minutes to choose which it will be. So the setup is, these boys are going to be fucking stupid and get all horny over this girl, and so they'll get distracted from what would be the logical choice. But the three of them that aren't Chris are just like, well, we're just going to take advantage of the 10 minutes that we have by just, like, hey, let's take pictures together and stuff. And so they're trying to figure out stuff about her because they realize that they can see her, she can't see them, and she's basically just going about her day while they're watching a hologram of her when she's off, light years away. So, but they're like, hey, it'd be great, with this communicator, we could not only communicate with people of Earth, we could communicate with alien species out there. So that's going to be really cool. And then one of them realizes that she seems to be holding something and looking at it. So we get a little bit of a time lapse, and the entity approaches them after their time has expired to make their decision. And it says, what's your choice? And the main guy says, the maid. And the entity's like, ha, I knew you guys would be entertaining. But they say, we don't need her to come to the ship, however, and we don't need her cleaning services. We have a request to make instead. And we get an explanation that what they saw in her hands, they used the reflection off of her eyes in the hologram because they can't see anything that she's actually interacting with in the hologram, but they used the reflection in her eyes to determine what she was holding. And she was holding seemingly a picture of her family, and she was crying over it. And so they basically from this surmise that she had been separated from her family, and so they are using their one request not to have her come and see them, but for her to be set free so that she can go be with her family. And so the entity grants their request, and for an instant, the girl materializes in front of them, and then she seems to happily cry before she fades away and is transported away. And the entity explains that she was in a position much like them. She got sucked through a wormhole, ended up marooned on a planet all alone, and so it has fulfilled their request and sent her to her family. And so they're like, I wonder if she understood what exactly it was we did for her. But anyway, that they feel like they've made the right choice. And as a reward for their decision and for seemingly figuring out this puzzle sort of that was laid out for them, the entity does give them the communicator as a reward. So that's basically it. This is that's essentially what happens in this chapter. There's a little bit more silly stuff that happens in the end of it, but that's it. This was a much more likable chapter than the previous one, I will say, because there's, some silliness in it, but it's like, hey, there's more than just to these guys than just they want to fuck. There is an element of intelligence to them, and there is a selfless aspect to these characters. So maybe this series will be okay after all. We'll see.
So last week I mentioned that I started reading it and I was like, okay. And then it kind of won me over by the end. That I was like, this is kind of a funny premise and everything like that. This week was the exact opposite. I started off really excited for this chapter because they were like, all right, well, I guess we can't really do anything. So you have no way to communicate with all these people. It would just take too long. And then just randomly the fucking super god shows up again. He's like, I'm back! And I have the solution to your problem again! And they get all excited. He's like, but... I was so excited. I was ready for something like, while you're using it, you'll get horrible diarrhea! Or some weird scenario goes... some hilarious circumstance to go along with it. And even when he's like, you have to pick between the thing or the girl, that there could be some humor out of it. And then it just kind of ends in like them actually making a good call and being good people. I was like, no, this is supposed to be a bunch of shitheads in space. What are you doing? So this chapter gets a big thumbs down from me. I was so ready to be like, yeah, they're big dumb shitheads who don't know what they're doing. This magical space god keeps showing up to be like, I don't know why I keep talking to you, but here I am again.
I kind of want this weird space extra dimensional entity to keep showing up, and for its like temptations to get more and more pathetic until it just becomes obvious that it just like really needs company and entertainment. He just shows up as like, she kicked me out, guys. So can I crash here for a while?
You guys got any TV shows?
No.
You guys been watching Mad Men? They're like, you mean that was done when it was like 6 years ago that ended. Yeah, I know. It just kind of, so much good TV, not enough time.
All right, guys, I'll give you a choice. We can watch Mad Men together, or I can launch you into the vacuum of space. What do you think? How long do we have to make the decision? 2 seconds. Ah! All right, I'll get the DVDs out.
Yes, DVDs is like, yeah, my bitch changed the Netflix passwords on me.
You get Netflix out here? Yeah, I'm an extra dimensional entity. I could have Netflix if I want. Well, why don't you just like sign up under a different account? Nah.
I don't want to. I don't want to give him my email.
It's too much difficulty to set up a new Gmail account, and then they want to verify with a phone number, and I don't want
to think up of one.
I mean, it's just too lazy to just use my old one with like another letter or number at the end. I'll never remember that. I'll get confused to get the passwords mixed up. Mission Yozakura family. Mission 17, Athletic War. Hey, the president from the last chapter is here again. And he is here to continue challenging Tayo by becoming a student at the school. And he immediately buys everyone's loyalty by giving them shit because he's rich as fuck. And then he just keeps on insisting that everyone realize that Tayo is trash and he is a god. They compete in athletics afterwards because, of course, they do. So, the president and Tayo compete with each other in a quick foot race first, and the president somehow skids ahead of Tayo really quickly. And they're like, "Oh wow, that's amazing! How did you do that? You set a world record. You dashed 100 meters in 3 seconds. How did you do that?" He's like, and Tayo's like, "Did you cheat?" And he's like, "No, I won fair and square. Though it is true that these rolling sneakers can give you more speed with these special balls on the soles, but it's just like an athlete wearing spikes, so it's not cheating at all." And they're like, "Yes, it is." And that just kind of becomes the whole premise of the chapter, is that the president keeps on challenging Tayo, and nobody is willing to call him out on cheating because he's bought them all off by giving them stuff. And the president says that Kyoichiro has promised him that he will be allowed to shake hands with Mutsumi if he beats Tayo at every single athletic competition that they have today, which really upsets Mutsumi. So Tayo is determined to protect her this way. Because Kyoichiro basically is like, yeah, so what happens is you'll have failed to protect her, and I'll kill you, and then I'll kill this guy for bothering Mutsumi. So they compete in a bunch of different ways, with the president continuing to just use these absurd devices to cheat. Eventually it comes down to the very last competition, a soccer match between the two of them. And so Tayo's like, all right, I've just got to, ignore this guy. I've just got to get around him without, giving him a chance to cheat me. And they manage to tap feet, and the president's like, oh, foul, oh, I'll die if I don't get a penalty kick, and I insist that they get 2 in a row. And the coach is just like, yes, you get those. And Tayo's like, this is bullshit. So, the president does the first penalty shot, and it launches like a fucking cannon right over Tayo's shoulder. And he's like, yes, I'm going to beat you this way. But it turns out the president's real intention is not actually to beat Taiyo in this competition. It's just to nail him with this fucking absurd cannonball soccer kick because he knows that if he actually wins this competition, that Kyoichiro will kill him. So instead, he'll kill Taiyo with this as an excuse, as a cover. So he launches the second penalty kick, and Mutsumi insists that Taiyo get out of the way, but instead he does a proper fucking Shaolin soccer, just stops the ball in both hands and wins that way. So the president's like, "How did you do that?" And Taiyo's like, "I didn't do anything. I just couldn't avoid it for Mutsumi's sake." So the president gets really mad. He stomps his foot, really upset, and of course his super-powered cleats that he's wearing for the soccer match end up activating, swing up into his face, and he fucking smashes his own nose in and also breaks his leg. And that's where he winds up at the end of the chapter in a hospital bed. And Taiyo is victorious once more. And that was it. It was better than the previous chapter involving these two, but that's about all I can say about it.
I say, was it? This one just felt empty to me. I feel like we've gotten the same thing out of Taiyo a lot, where it's just like, I really care about her, so I'll stand here and get beaten up, but my love will hold me strong. And it just doesn't feel like there's more to it than that, and I'm getting kind of bored of it. Like, I guess it's better than if they had just gone with some jokes, because the jokes in this chapter aren't funny, but I don't know.
It doesn't help that the president is not a very compelling antagonist in the slightest. This chapter is full of jokes, and maybe one or two of them were kind of funny, but that's about it. And the president's just he's just such a simple character in terms of the execution in this one. There was a little bit more to him in the previous one when I talked about like, oh yeah, he has really good intentions. He wants to help the world. He's just a real shithead about the way he's going about it and the way that he treats people in the immediate sense. And this one's just like, he really hates Taiyo and he wants to beat him, so he's cheating, and that's it. Yeah. So Samurai 8, Chapter 31. This wasn't the deal. I am altering the deal. Pray do not alter it any further. So
this wasn't the deal, Blackheart. This wasn't the deal.
They go into Benkei's base in order to stop him, and little robot drones show up to attack them, so they cut through them really easily. Benkei's goons on the ground are like, "This wasn't the deal," as they're confronting Samurai, and they're like, "We're gonna beat you and take your keys and then sell them to him." And they're like, "Wait a minute, he's pointing a weapon at the planet. He's gonna kill us. Ben, you bastard, this wasn't the deal." Oh, everyone's betraying everyone. Isn't this compelling? Then R2-D2 hacks into the wall and opens up the doorway. And then he's like, "I'm searching for the route to the cockpit, and I've disabled all isolation while on the way. So now we'll share this route between us." And they're like, "This is all thanks to your master for gaining information from Benkei." And then they're like, "Way to take charge, Sen." So he just did the most obvious thing. Again, send the silence. Super smart. So Benkei's like, "Oh no, they're using all the memories they stole from me in order to get through this way. But then if they know that, how much do they know? They might even know about Plan C. And it seems that they've revealed Kosuga's truth, what actually happened. All right, but then I'm gonna use the ship to link up to Yoshitsune's key, and then I'll use that to capture them." And then everyone's running down the halls. Sen tries to launch his sword blade through the air and kill Benkei before he can do anything, but misses his head. So he's just like, "All right, I'll just, pull a freaking Kylo Ren and move the lightsaber from over here and try and cut through you that way." And Benkei's like, "No." And then he summons a bunch of poles with tentacles, and they grab everyone. They're like, "This caught us off guard. He can control everything from here." And so the only one that he hasn't captured with this technique is he's like, "Kosuga, whose side are you on?" And he's like, "Well, you killed my mom and tricked my dad." And Benkei's like, "So?" You make a good point. So he's like, "Kill me if you're mad at me. Otherwise, here, take this sword and cut off their heads and I'll let you live." And they're like, no, Kotsuga! And so he approaches Ryu first and starts swinging the sword when the chapter ends. I'll bet he's definitely got to kill his best friend.
Ben sucks. This character still sucks. I'm still shocked we're not done this thing yet.
Like, he's like, I'll give you one more chance. Kill them all. Why do you believe him? You've got no reason to believe he'll be loyal to you.
Like, this dude is just nothing but a goober of incompetence that keeps surviving. And it's never by his own, like, ingeniousness or just, like, with chicken shit tactics. It's just, like, everyone the second before they just cut his fucking head off, lose all power, or he just, like, goes somewhere else. And they're like, well, we're done with him now.
How great would it have been if, like, when Sen was, like, moving his sword with the force and it was starting to cut into him, if he was just like, oh, I've got to go, and he just, like, walks away from it.
He's like, oh, that sword's pretty sharp. I'm going to be over here now.
He just outruns it by just casually walking away. Like, it's not even that, like, he's got no reason to believe that this kid is going to be loyal to him. He's also got nothing to benefit from it. What does he have to gain by having this guy remain loyal to him? He's willing to kill everyone else that's on the planet. What's this shitty kid got to offer him?
I mean,
nothing.
Yeah, I was like, he's already kind of got what I guess he didn't get what he wanted, per se, because he's not necessarily going to be adding any more. Well, no, he's going to get all the fucking weapons of the people on the ship, so he gets all of those. Yeah. So there's nothing, he doesn't need the kid. I don't know. It's there, I guess.
Zipman, Chapter 3. Force it open. Sorry, it was really hard to read the text there. So the new zipper suit villain, Cutie Flash, who is a magical girl looking thing, has shown up, still terrorizing, oh gosh, I've forgotten her name. I'll remember in a second. But Jackman is here because the brothers have met up and they have fusioned again. So Cutie Charm, that was her name. So they rescue her and she prepares a laser. And I do like that it's not Kagami, it's anyway, main character guy, Devil Gorilla. I'll remember all this stuff eventually. It's only the third chapter. Give me a break. I do like how he's like very familiar with the character that she is similar to, which is basically a Pretty Cure reference because he's like, oh yeah, it's not all just like magical wands and stuff. It's actually really innovative with its martial arts use in magical girl stuff. So they have a fight. And they try and use the 100,000 power Jack rocket thing again, the rocket punch thing, and she just deflects it by shooting her laser at it, and it just goes into the wall behind her. And they're like, "Oh, this is bad." So fortunately, China ends up recovering the zipper thing that Q Charm had knocked away from her before, and they happen to spot China running away with it. And so Koshiro gets the idea of like, maybe that is connectable to these suits. And he looks down at the zipper arm, the same one that they launched the rocket fist from. And they're like, oh, we could use that. And so Koshiro calls out to her and is like, hey, I need that part back. Please help me. So China throws it back to them. And Koshiro thanks her. And then he's like, all right, this is just an idea, but, just slide it into the right arm zipper and then put it in and open it. And sure enough, the arm opens up and there's an attachment that looks like this huge engine with like turbines and stuff. And it grows into a fist. It's absurdly heavy, but fortunately, Devil Gorilla is really strong and determined. And so they're able to lift it. They launch this huge rocket fist at Q Charm, who blasts it with her laser again, blows a hole in it. And she's like, ah, ha, 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 ha. But they have just used this as an opening to instead getting close as they rushed in behind it. They reach out for the Q-Charm zipper and rip it open. And this seems to expose the person within. And we only get a very brief glimpse of their face as the chapter ends. So this is an all right chapter.
But Nick, this is the very significant chapter. This is the chapter 3 where we, as the hosts of Weekly Manga Recap, decide whether or not we're going to continue reading Zipman or not.
I would like to continue doing so.
And so it shall be.
Okay. You just don't really care, do you?
No, it's like answer.
I'm waiting for it to kick into the next gear, like you. But I do think that there is an interesting idea in terms of like you have to rip open the suit in order to win the battle. So it's kind of like, there's this that's the win condition, and it can provide some unique fights, I think, because it doesn't matter how much they beat the shit out of each other. It's like, okay, we got to grab that zipper and we got to destroy it that way. So
I do like the zipper part of it being like an actual element. Is pretty sweet.
And it has the attachments and stuff. So
all right, let's talk about We Never Learn, Nick.
The day's arrived!
Question 140, the time of Pizza Bet. The day has arrived. It is the secondary exam.
Sounds so epic.
The time of Pizza Bet. And we start off by showing Karasu as the vice principal's like, so, it's a big day. Are you worried about the students? She's like, absolutely not. They're like, really? Because you're shredding super important documents for today's meeting. So she actually cares. Then we cut over to Haruka, who's doing her interview for the exchange program. And the person speaking to her in English is like, hello, I am Leonardo. Pleased to meet you. So she's like, okay, just gotta...
It's really intimidating. This guy in a suit with sunglasses.
Yeah, he definitely has an imposing figure. So she's like, oh, yeah, nice to meet you. He's like, well, what do you want to study at university? She's like, I would like to study, cutting-edge sports physiology. And I'd like to enhance my...
Oh, you'd fail the English exam, Chris.
Yeah, me no talk good. So yeah, he's like, okay, good. Well, what in your high school life so far has really epitomized the joys of youth? And I was like, shit, these are questions that I don't know if I can answer in English. I'd be like, be like, study hall and eat food good.
If I got asked this question, I would have probably been like, high school is kind of a miserable experience, honestly. Like, I didn't really connect with anyone in my year. Everyone kind of made fun of me for being a nerd, and I had to get along with people in the class under me who were just as nerdy as me instead of the people around me who should have had my back. And also, I was ground into dust by the horrors of a magnet program. Next question, thank you.
They're like, now do it in French.
Parlez-vous?
He's like, yes.
This is how you speak French, oui.
Oh, you get, yes, you good, you very good.
Lady in the Water, great movie. Oh!
Being rips off his mask. It's Ben's eyes like, you did it! You have mastered everything you needed to learn! So she starts giving her explanation. She's like, okay, this is a sample answer I was supposed to give, so I would like to, devote myself tirelessly to the academic and athletic. He's like, stop. I see that you've prepared very well for your interview today, but I want you to forget all of that. Don't recite answers you remembered. I'm here to talk to you as a human being. Say the answer in your own words. And she starts thinking, she gets caught up because she's like, I don't know. I didn't study we didn't practice this part. What do I do? And she starts thinking, and she thinks to the notebook that's in her suitcase, the one that Uega had given her. And she's like, the message that was in there is like, hey, you're ready. Just answer with your usual bold style. So she says, a notebook. He's like, a notebook, not swimming? She's like, yes, this notebook epitomizes the joys of youth to me. This notebook has energized me. It's helped me have more passion for swimming. And it's also connected me to the people I love with my whole heart. And we cut around to the other girls and see that they're all kind of in the same situation. Ogata's like reading through text. And she thinks about Uega's reductive reading, and she starts doing it. Firmino is looking at an equation. She's like, oh, right. Now that, Uega taught me about it, I feel like I could do anything. Asumi's like, oh, okay, I'll just, I'm glad I went over this with Uega and this one. So last year my field of vision was so narrow, but now everything's so clear. And
Ogata's talking to herself during the exam. She needs to shut the fuck up. Yeah. She's gonna get failed.
But they all have their moments, and we continue with Aruka's narration of her saying, like, it all started with these notebooks, and these notebooks tied us together. We all strove toward our own dreams, crying, laughing, giving everything we had, plus spending time with all those people I loved. The days flew by, and that was the epitome of youth for me. And the interviewer takes off his glasses, and he's like, that concludes our interview. I hope you continue to enjoy your youth, Miss Aruka. And he has the cutest eyes in the universe. There's like sparkles in them, little tiny beady eyes, but the rest of it is so bright and colorful. He has little tiny eyelashes that poke up. She's just like, oh my God, your eyes are so cute. He's like, oh, you think so? I do get that a lot. And then we cut over to Yueka. It's like, all right, I got through it. And he's like, oh, I really don't know. And all the girls are there to be like, well, except Kirasu, but that's probably for the best. They're like, congratulations, you're done. Let's go celebrate. He's like, yeah, but, we haven't really found out what the results are. They're like, no. And here's a thing of flowers. Thank you for being our teacher. We're all so happy. And the chapter ends with the girls trying to hand him the bouquet and tripping and falling into him. As Asumi watches off to the side and is like, I hope they don't kill him, basically.
Also, there's like some passersby who are like, oh, are they upset because they bombed their test? And Asumi's just like, shut up.
But a very, very sweet chapter.
It was very nice, yes. Weird ending, but it was a really nice chapter overall. Mm-hmm. Dr. Stone with another...
Get stoned!
With another 2-page color spread for this week, with showing off Tsukasa's negative 10% body fat. Look at him. Does he eat? What's wrong with him?
He has, before this photo shoot, he didn't drink water for 24 hours ahead of time. God. I always think back to that, and I'm like, fucking poor Hugh Jackman did it for that mediocre movie of the Wolverine. A movie I still enjoy, but you think back, you're like, no one's going to remember that movie. And that man dehydrated himself just so he could look as humanly good as possible for one shirtless fight scene.
I like that movie.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just, like, I
guess
it's
villain.
Yeah, well,
but...
I'm like, I guess it ranks somewhere in the top 5 of X-Men movies, but, like, not... Like, I don't have passion for it. If someone was like, I fucking hate the Wolverine, I think it's the stupidest movie ever, I'd be like, yeah, I thought it was okay. Like, it's like if someone told me they were like, I think Winter Soldier shit. I'd be like, well, fuck you and your family. I'll fight you to the death on this. They're like, I thought Rat Race was a dumb movie. It's like, how dare you? It was the genius ensemble comedy of our time. I'll fucking stab you in your sleep.
I think a lot of people thought the Rat Race was stupid, Chris. I'm sorry to say.
No! It was brilliant!
Hey, look! It's Smash Mouth!
It was the best! I love Smash Mouth! It was the perfect end to that movie! They all got up on stage and danced to Smash Mouth!
When you think about it, I think that movie's probably better now because of that ending now than it would have been 5 years ago. It kind of went on a arc.
Now it's better than ever.
Not sure about that.
I was like, Cuba Gooding Jr. has never been higher in the public consciousness than he was here.
Cuba Gooding Jr. was in that movie?
Yes,
Jesus.
he was. Along with a lot of other actors and actresses you probably don't remember. Did you know John Lovitz had a major part in that movie?
Yes, he had he was the family man, I think, that was deceiving his family. Yep. Yeah, and he made his daughter shit out the window. Yes.
Good times. They also steal Hitler's car. There's a Hitler joke in there. Back when Hitler jokes were just clean fun.
Anyway, Yo's got the fucking thing. He's got the petrification device. But oh no, Ibarra is pouncing down out of the air with his mouth wide open. Is there something wrong with his fucking teeth, by the way? His teeth look weird in this shot.
I think after seeing him, there's something wrong with my teeth. Like, I'm like, why aren't my teeth as cool looking as that?
Why don't I have a second layer of my teeth? I think it's just that we're seeing the teeth in the background going over those in the foreground, but it looks like they're like stacked on top of each other, and it looks very strange.
They also look very thick for teeth.
Yes. Also, The important thing is that as he dives into the water, as he's passing by Yo, he says 3 meters, 1 second. And that activates the device, which petrifies Yo. And of course, he drops it, and and then Ibarra is able to grab it. He spots Oarashi floating around in the water, wondering what the hell's going on. And he's like, all right. I'll hand him the device. No. Okay, I've got it. I know what I'll do. So he thinks of a plan. He puts the Medusa in his mouth and says 2,000 meters, 15 minutes. And he's able to say this because the thing's actually inside his mouth. So then he grabs Oarashi and he palms the device with the other hand while he's pulling Oarashi towards him. Then we cut away to everyone up on the shore. People are running, and Ukyo's like, wait a minute. I heard something. I heard something about meters and seconds and the ominous sound of the device, because he heard it when it was set up next to Yo. And then all of a sudden, Oarashi comes rushing out of the water and starts charging up the shore. They're like, what's going on? He's going towards the center of the island. And Ukyo's like, all right, Taiju, use your voice and let everyone know. And so Taiju cries out, hey, he's got the Medusa! And so everyone starts rushing after Oarashi, trying to catch him. Basically, everyone who's, not even like just the people that you would think would typically handle the physical work. Like, I think like Gen's running towards him. So, yeah. So they're trying to do this. A bunch of the guards try and stop them because they don't really know what's going on, but they realize they've got to protect him. But eventually, Magma and Kinro and Nikki manage to pile on top of him. But Arashi's just like, power! And just bursts out of them and keeps on running. So, yeah, he's basically like Udawara of this series. Ibarra is watching this from a very safe distance. He thinks to himself, like, yeah, in terms of just sheer power, no one can match him. So they're not going to be able to stop him. So everyone's desperately like, what do we got to do? How do we stop him? It's too late for us to actually go out into the sea to try and escape. Senku tries to think what kind of options are available to him. Chrome thinks about it. He's like, all right. Well, when the petrification beam happened, the last time it happened, and we get a narration saying that, everyone was trying to do something at that moment. Ryusui was rescuing Suika. Ukyo tried to shoot it down. Chrome wasn't staring dumbfounded, however. He observed. And while observing the petri beam for the first time, he was doing science. And so he says to Senku that the last time that the light appeared, he tracked it. And when the petri beam spreads out, it goes at a set speed. So he rushes ahead of Senku. And Ryusui's like, you've got something on. He's like, yes, we're going to make it an awesome move. And so Ryusui's on board with it, whatever it is. We cut up ahead to Arashi. Finally, Taiju fucking tackles him. Taiju, the linebacker here. And they've got him. Yeah, all right. Let's get the device and throw it away. And they're like, he doesn't have the device. And Arashi's like, Minister Ibarra said that if I don't get to the island center, that if I get to the island center, that I won't turn to stone. And it turns out that Ibarra fucking made him swallow the goddamn device. And so it activates inside of his fucking stomach as they're all staring over him, horrified. And the last thing we see is everyone slowly being enveloped by the beam as Ibarra just kind of smirks to himself from off in the distance. So, what's gonna happen next? Cool chapter.
Yeah, it's exciting. I do like the way we see Chrome add his big part to all this. Not like how Ibarra really does feel smart and effective in all this, and he manages to use the pieces around him. It makes him a compelling villain.
So it seems as though, because we see, Chrome getting swallowed up by it, and he warns Senku's like, it's up to him now. It's like, you've got to do this. That it seems as though basically everyone got enveloped by the beam because they were trying to chase down Oarashi, except for Senku. So, presumably he's still inside of the range of the device, but maybe he'll have time to react to it.
Yep.
So. All right. Chainsaw Man. Chapter 51, Dark Diving. It's down to a face-off between Denji and Reyes. She starts things off by blowing off one of his arms, like you do.
As you do.
Uh, he gets back up. Ray says, this is really annoying. Can you just die now, please? And Denji says, well, if you want that to happen, you could have just killed me the first time we met. And Reese doesn't really respond to this. She just said, he's got nowhere to run. But Denji says, well, not really. And he gestures to the water behind them. And he's like, I mean, you taught me how to swim, and that was a big mistake. So he tries to use his chainsaw again. He revs up himself by pulling the cord. She blows off his other arm. But he's got his arms on chains now. And he lashes them around her, ties her up, pulls her in close to him and says, can you explode when you're wet? And he throws them both over the edge of the docks, and they both sink into the water together and sink all the way to the bottom. Both of them kind of have a recollection of when they were playing around in the water together when she was teaching him to swim. Time passes. The sun rises. We cut to the shore where Denji is sitting there along with Riz and Beam, and they're all regenerated. They've all got all their body parts and stuff. Beam's not doing so well. He's sucking the air, but he's alive clearly. And Riz is like, why did you revive me? And Denji says, well, I'm living a wonderful life. And even if I get beaten black and blue, go through hell, and die again and again, as long as I get to eat good grub the next day, I can wipe the ledger clean. But if I arrested you right here and turned you over to public safety, I feel like there would be a fishbone stuck in my throat. Even if I'm living this wonderful life, there's going to be this stabbing pain in the back of my throat. Sometimes it'd suck. So Riz is like, I mean, I could still kill you right now. But then he just says, well, if I'm going to get killed, let it be at the hands of a hottie. That's my motto. I mean, now I guess it is, but all right. But Riz thinks this is funny, and he's like, do you actually think that I like you? I mean, look, literally everything I did to seduce you, that was all part of my training. It was a lie. And he kind of does stare at her in shock and bewilderment for a second. But then she turns away and says, I spent too much time fighting you, so I'm leaving now. And she leaves. Denji offers her the chance to run away with him. And they could, hey, they'd have a better chance if they were together, working together. And Reese points out, hey, if you do that, you're going to be aiding and abetting a murderer, Denji. I've killed a lot of people. And Denji's like, well, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. You say it was all a lie, but isn't it true that you taught me how to swim? And so she leans in close and kind of grabs him around the back of the neck and punches him in the throat. And walks off while he collapses to the ground. And she just says, you need to wise up a bit. He calls after her, says that he'll be waiting for her at noon at the cafe, and she's gone. Beam wakes up when Denji calls to him, and Denji's like, I can't move my arms. I think she broke my neck. So Beam reaches out to try and rev his engine so that he can, properly heal himself. We cut to the apartment that Denji shares with Power and all them. And he packs up an envelope with some cash, packs up a backpack, and he leaves. So, he is definitely serious about this idea of running off with Riz, despite the fact that they had this huge knockdown, drag-out brawl where many bystanders were killed. So, who knows how this is going to turn out.
There's something... So, I love this chapter a lot. And one of the parts that's really weird to me is the relationship that these two have is this kind of super engaging one. So much so that the moment happens, Denji's arms are blown off and he ties her up with his chainsaw treads, basically, and then throws them both into the water and they're sinking to the bottom. And my thought was, this is kind of romantic in a way. Like, I can't explain it, but it's weird that there's this weird kind of intimate moment that the two of them are spending at the bottom of an ocean like that.
Yeah,
as a payoff to their
with their heads right next to each other, just kind of sinking into unconsciousness and possible death.
And you're watching; their faces are just monsters. It's monster things and jagged teeth. That's it. But there's something romantic about it that I can't quite explain. And as you get to the end of it, it's her being like, "All right, well, I'm out. That was all a lie." And it's him like, "I don't think it was." And I don't know, like. I believe that there is something there on her end, but I think she's also pushing a lot of it away. But I feel like we're going to not get that in the next chapter. Like Denji's going to show up at that cafe and no one's there, and he kind of reluctantly goes back there. But I don't know. I'm very excited. It hit me in a real emotional way that I really enjoyed.
Also, he gave her his shirts so that she would be decent when she woke up. So that was nice.
Yeah. Where did her choker go? Because isn't that how she transforms?
Good point. I don't know.
Like I sat there, I was like, I mean, Denji can't lose the tread that starts him off. So I'm like, or the chain. I was like, so does her neck thing just appear whenever she puts one on or something? I don't know.
I hate to tell you this, Chris, but the artwork in Chainsaw Man isn't the best sometimes.
What are you trying to say?
All right. What are we on now?
Okay, never mind. I'm seeing rings and other scenes, so I guess she just lost the choker. All right, let's talk Seven Deadly Sins then, Nick. With 2 super big chapters, with so much to talk about. God, why did you do this to us? So let's start with chapter 335, What the Witch Has Always Wanted. We start with a big color page that says, when the balance between light and shadows breaks down, it will mark the end of the age of gods and chaos will return. My gluttonous daughter who is starved for affection and ravenous for knowledge, you have precipitated that brilliantly. So we get our big 2-page spread, all the sins. And
some unique poses that they're striking, like odd body positions.
A lot of them
really dynamic.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of them look like they're falling, like all of them just slipped on ice.
Yep, that's what you don't see is that all of them are slipped, and they're just really angry at someone. We slipped, but we're pissed at you.
Oh, ice. So we start off the chapter. It's all the demon, 7 Deadly Sins at this big party, and a bunch of people are talking about Merlin's scar, about how ugly it is, and they're like, it's kind of a shame. She was so beautiful. And she's overhearing this, and Elizabeth walks up and it's like, hey, it's none of my business, but if you want, I can heal that burn wound away. And Merlin's like, do you think it's ugly? Elizabeth says, no, I think it's very beautiful, and if you're okay with it, then so am I. And everyone else kind of, like, they're all supportive. And I was like, this is weird. I'm not used to this series. I assume so.
And then Meliodas is like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Fuck you.
They mentioned, like, yeah, with that scar, Escanor still lives on, but I'm sad he's gone, but everyone can be happy. Melodius used up all of his Demon Lord power, so he doesn't have to go back to the demon world. Elizabeth's curse's been broken. They just go one by one saying how everybody's kind of got what they want. And then they're like, oh, wait. What did you want, Merlin? You never really talk about yourself very much.
You never really talk about yourself. It's like, yeah, that's a good point. We're 335 chapters into this. We've no idea what makes Merlin tick. Well, it turns out it was for a big reveal.
Yeah. And Merlin, they're like, yeah, what do you want, Merlin? She's like, well, I suppose you do have an obligation. Like, her eyes turn evil immediately. And she's like, I suppose you do have a reason to know. So let's go. And she teleports them all away. They're over where the lake is. There's also where Boar's Hat is, so they reunited with Hawk to no one's happiness except Nick's. And they're like, well, what's that giant lake up there? Oh, that's the magic from the lake. What is that still doing there? And Merlin's like, I'm going to wake up Arthur now. And
they're like, what?
And she does some fucking hand motions and fucking opens up a portal, and Arthur with the sword still stabbed through him comes out. And they're like, you're going to wake up Arthur? And she's like, yeah, and then the lake starts talking. It's like, it seems the time has come to say hello to your and all master. And Merlin's like, you know what? I was wrong, Arthur. This wasn't a sword to doom you to death. It was a key to lead you to the next stage. Now, O key, use that magic that fills the lake and open the door. And we see some clicking. And then a clunk, and a giant wave of light comes out, and what emerges afterwards is Arthur Pendragon, and he's alive. And Merlin says, of all the races, humans are the most contradictory beings, possessing both the extremes of good and evil, light and shadow, and contradiction is no different from chaos. In other words, a human who has been chosen by the Saint of Chaos will become he who commands chaos. My goal was to awaken Arthur as the Lord of Chaos.
Bum, bum, bum. What does that mean? Let's find out right
Yeah.
now.
Any second now, because Crunchyroll's chapters load super quick. Chapter 336, The Lord of Chaos, with a super evil picture of Arthur.
Oh, I
on the
look
front.
evil. This is going to be a revelation that I'm evil. Yes, it's not a way to dupe you into thinking everything's going to be evil, and then
Nope.
there's a little bit more of a complicated answer. No, I'm evil.
I'm evil, Merlin, or Arthur now. So Arthur's like, oh, what's happening to my body? And Merlin's like, just embrace it. This is time for you to awaken the immeasurable magic inside of you. And she's like, he's like, what are you talking about? She's like, just keep going. And he's screaming, and she's like, when the king awakens, he will release the seal of chaos, and chaos will return home to the king. So Melodius starts flying towards him, like, hey, you seem like you're in pain. And Arthur sees him and remembers that Melodius was part of the group that killed him. And he's like, no, I will never let demons have their way with Britannia. And we get one of the craziest 2-page spreads ever of just shit happening. I can't describe
There's
it.
a part here.
There's outside of the ending 2-page spread of Toriko, where there was just a gun in space, no 2-page spread has left me more speechless as to what I was looking at.
There's there's a mountain like getting drawn up into like a black hole. There's a face with an eye for a mouth. There is a house with an arm. There's a brick spire that has multiple eyes gouging out of it. Yeah, there's a bunch of weird shit that's going on.
Yeah, a bunch of crazy stuff. Everyone's like, what's happening? What are you doing? This isn't a hallucination. This is reality. Merlin, is this what you're doing? And a giant like statue with a pendulum for an arm is like swinging around. So Bon has to save Melodius from that. And then like a flower opens up and a bunch of, you can't really describe it, just shit comes out. And it is really dangerous. And then Melodius gets beamed in the face by a gigantic D20, which is maybe my favorite moment of the whole
That
chapter.
is a D12, sir.
Sorry, D12. My bad. I meant to say D12. I got distracted because people in the chat were saying a D8. And I was like, no.
That's not a D8 at all.
Unless they're really big 2 sides on the other side to cover the other 2 numbers. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of chaos and things are just going insane. And you see Arthur saying, like, Sir Melodius, I looked up to you, so why? And Merlin grabs him. And I kind of embraces him. It's like, no, Melodius did not betray you. That is a fact. Do not let your powers consume you. Come now, it's okay. And he kind of calms down. He's like, Merlin? And everything goes back to normal. And they're like, what the fuck? Merlin's like, the Melodius you met back then is not the true Melodius. You must understand, as proof of that, Elizabeth and the 7 deadly sins are all here with you. And he's like, oh, wow, that was the mistake of a lifetime. You're like, fuck, what's that, boy? And
well, interestingly, something that happens is because Meliodas like was starting to go into like his demon emperor form and stuff, and Bon had his weapons out, and I think let me double check real quick. But then once everything snaps back to normal, then it's like nothing ever happened. Like everyone is just, as if they're kind of positioned as they were before, but nobody's actually like in battle mode or anything.
So Arthur's just like, I'm just happy to see you guys. And Melodius like, so Merlin, what did you do to Arthur? Like, what do you mean by chaos? She's like, well, chaos is an impure and pure entity of darkness that even the demons fear, and of light that even the gods worship. Its power is immense. It's believed that with every single intention it brought about this world and all the races from nothingness. So the best way to describe this actually is weird because we just had this conversation in Dice Funk that when people tend to think chaos, they tend to think like randomization or stuff like that. But in a lot of biblical and like scriptural sense, it's just what was before order kind of came around. And she's like, yeah, Arthur, you command chaos and you are the king who will lead Britannia into a new world. And Melodius got angry. He's like, why would you awaken a power that's both a blessing and a curse? What are you plotting? What is your wish? And Merlin smiles and says, my wish. And the lake's like, excuse me. I wish to mansplain this. Allow me to speak on Merlin's behalf. and I will tell you the tale of a wish made by a single lonely witch who wandered the land in search of chaos.
Backstory dump.
Yep. I like these
This
chapters.
is really, yeah, this is really odd. I'm not really clear on the direction that we're going with this, but I'm interested to learn more at least. So,
Seems like it could be really cool.
The Promised Neverland. The bad shit's going down. Chapter 161. Never be alone. Oh no, the Ratchet guys showed up to capture people. Oh no. And they meet up with Norman's men who met up with them. And they're like, you defeated the queen? Yeah, she's dead. Cool. Let's get to base. They go to Norman's base. Oh, they come across Oliver on the way. And he's like, something happened. Everyone's gone. And so Julian and Nigel were the ones to reach the base first. But by the time they got there, everyone was gone. And so everyone was taken away. All the people in the base were taken away, including the lookouts. And like, well, where were they taken? And so they managed to take some demons who were at the base waiting to ambush us. And we made them spill it. And they're like, the escapees, they're being transferred to the closest high-security top-class farm to be processed as food, Gracefield House. And so like, if it's Gracefield House, it is under Yverk's jurisdiction. Easier to hide the escapees from the other aristocrats to offer them to the queen. And they're like, well, but how do we deal with 2,000 Imperial soldiers? And they're like, well, I mean, that's 7 times as many as we had at the castle, but we had Gielin's army then. We don't have a demon force to throw at these soldiers. So, and Oliver's like, yeah, we've got like 10 people here that can help us, and we're wounded, and most of the Lambda are out of commission. So what do we do? And it was like, we're gonna go. Let's go save everyone. And Ray's like, yeah, we just need to discuss how we're gonna do it, Emma. I mean, we gotta think of a plan. And Vincent's like, do you have a plan? He's like, nope. That's why you have to think of one and then go. Instead of thinking, we can't do it, what now? We have to think, we can do it. How do we go about it? It's going to be okay. The 3 of us, Norman, Ray, and me, are together. And also there's you guys. But she says, we've changed the world now. Little old us born in cages changed the world this much, and we're just one step away. We're at the point of being one step away now. 2,000 Imperial soldiers in the Ratchet clan, that's nothing. We can do it. We'll pull it off. So Norman laughs, and he's like, yeah, I think we can do it. And so everyone starts to get more optimistic about their chances, and they start to set off together. And Emma thinks to when Norman told her, you're not alone. And she's like, I remember this situation, this sensation. It's okay if I'm weak because we're not alone. That's why we humans are strong. And so there's this big 2-page spread to end the chapter with all of the remaining human forces all gathered together. There's way more than 10 of them. What the fuck are you talking about? But everyone's really cool posing with their weapons and stuff as they look over the Gracefield house. And they're like, all right, this is it. And Emma says, let's go. Everyone's waiting. So I do like the idea of, everything coming back to the place where this adventure all started. And it does make sense why everyone was brought in this way. I really hope that this doesn't just turn out to ever be just like, yeah, let's go invade and shoot our machine guns and stuff, which it looks like it's going to be. It'll be really weird if it's like, yeah, everything's going back to the place it all started with guns. So I guess we'll see how things go as we go into this home stretch for the Promised Neverland.
Yeah. Meh.
Yeah.
I don't have too much to say. I need to see more.
Nah.
Let's we're also low on time, so let's get going. Black Clover 233. Fate begins to move. So Asta's to go find Charmy because Charmy's eating too much apparently. So she's like, you're gonna try to stop me now. And they're like, yeah, Charmy has emerged. She's befriended all the animals in the forest because she gives them delicious food. And some dudes...
I don't think that's what's going on. I think she just summoned a bunch of sheep, but whatever.
Well,
no, she did actually bring along the animals. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So the grass gym leader from the new Pokemon games, like, I think I may have created a terrible monster. And I don't fucking Rill shows up to help. And I guess it's supposed to be pretty crazy because the two of them work together to defeat Charmy and save the village because now all their food won't be eaten. And then there's a moment where no one even prompts it. They're like, Ass is just like, you've gotten stronger. And he's like, well, the
reason why is because my dick felt weird recently.
Yeah,
so.
He's like, when I think of a certain somebody, it makes this unstoppable urge to create well up inside of me. And he draws what he thinks of, and it's the real Charmy, or I guess not the real, but the transformed Charmy, because she's a werewolf or some shit. I can't remember exactly what she was.
She's half dwarf.
Half dwarf, that was it. And he's in love with the not dwarf part of her, or whatever, the non-dwarf transfer. I don't know what to call it, but he's in love with it, the tall one. And Ass is just like, that's her right there. And
I do appreciate where he's just like, well, that's her. Like the person that you've like been dreaming of is her. It's right. She's right here.
And
I do appreciate that he's just like, that's her.
Yeah.
As opposed to the typical cliche of like, I can't possibly tell him, the truth or anything like that. So.
But Ro's like, what are you talking about? She's fat. And they're like, yeah, well, I mean, that's true. And Charmy's like, what are you talking about? I'm not fat. I'm pleasantly plump, the most popular type. The conversation's done there.
Yeah, it's gone.
We're just done. I don't know why we did it. There's no drama anymore because Will now knows that was Charmy anyway. I guess it's just to be like, he has a crush on her. But it's so weird that we spent the last part of last chapter and the start of this chapter covering this to then just abruptly be like, it's done, I guess. And we go over to who shows up over at his old village and is like, hey, you wanted me? And they're like, yeah, this dude's here. And this dude's like, I was from the Spade Kingdom, and we were a peaceful country. But then the Dark Triad appeared, and they got rid of all of the old people, like the old kingdom people. And you were one of those people. You were the Prince of the Spade Kingdom. You're like, all right, cool. I'm glad this fucking big drama has been sitting here for a while.
It's gonna be really cool when when the Clover Kingdom just implants one of their highest ranking magic knights as the new leader of the Spade Kingdom, and they've got blood magic control over the Diamond Kingdom, and the Heart Kingdom's queen. All of her friends are in the Clover Kingdom. That's not a bad thing at all.
It's
Monarchy's great, guys. You just have to control them.
Bring them under your thumb.
I mean, in fairness, this whole thing with Yuno's medallion has been set up since the very beginning of the series. It's just that has never been a thing since that one flashback Yuno had about Asta and protecting it, when someone tried to take it from him. And currently, I don't really see any point to him being this long-lost prince of another kingdom thing. I don't really know exactly what that's going to add in terms of drama. Partially because Yuno's such a boring character. So.
I mean, the idea seems to just be like, hey, this is two character. Yuno's now a super important character, more than we already know, and he has a connection to this, so it ties Yuno into everything. But, I'm not angry about this in a way. I know some people were just like, oh, of course Yuno's a prince. It's like, no, I mean, this does actually make a bit of sense. Why Yuno is so astronomically strong is because he's a member of a royal kingdom. Does justify part of it. I mean, I am a little curious why refugees from a kingdom were like, oh no, we've been ousted. Time to abandon our child at this random village. Like they didn't die. It doesn't. We must
prepare for the day. We must prepare him for the day that he can return and take his rightful place on the throne. Here, you take him, random nuns.
We shall drop him off at the poorest village in this kingdom.
The place that has the greatest disadvantage and will have the least funding, the least chance to make him survive through childhood, and the least chance for his magical talents to be discovered. Anyway, we're going to Tahiti. Bye! That's that done with.
It's like the classic.
My solemn vow to the king has been fulfilled. I'm going away now.
the loyal butler trope. He's just like, I would do everything to see you risen back on that throne again. So I shall put you in the most disadvantageous situation possible and disappear.
Well, I did it so that you would rise through the ranks of your own. I mean, if I had just coddled you your whole life, then you would have never found your own inner strength and been able to take your rightful place. Anyway, get going. And he just, shoves him through the door.
He's like, now I know you wanted to stand this as your baby, but I shall place you in the worst care humanly possible. My other alternative to make sure that you were strong enough was to start drowning you and to see if you would use your immense baby magic strength to fight away and getting stronger. But I was talked out of that one, so I'm going to abandon you here in the slums.
Prince, you must understand that, yes, your mother and father, the queen and the king, they gave me this tremendous supply of gold so that I would have the funding to raise you your entire life, and you would never need to go hungry or struggle to make your way in the world. But I've decided that gold will be better spent on hookers and blow, and so off you go. Just drop kicks him through the door.
Oh, boy.
Anyway.
Let's talk about One Piece.
One Piece, the Kurozumi clan's plot, chapter 965. So, some time has passed as freaking his name escapes me all of a sudden. There's too many names in this goddamn series. So, a lot happens in this chapter in terms of developing how we got from the point where they were just traveling on Whitebeard's ship to where things in the present got to be. Oh god, what's his fucking name? The emperor's name, the fucking shogun pirate guy.
Odin,
yes. I was literally just like, what is this fucking name? We've been spending the last several chapters like, what is his name?
What is that dude's name?
Odin is talking with Toki while they're just looking out over the ocean with Toki. Yeah.
From Metacalypse? That's Toki?
You won't believe this guy. I went on this ship and I married this emperor guy and it was cool and yes.
The best
Toki. Come on.
The best Toki is when they all decide that they're like, we're gonna lose weight. They go to the doctor. He's like, you're all astronomically fat, like all their shirts are off, and Toki's like in the best shape, so he's like, you're all astronomically fat, and Toki's like, even Toki's. he just keeps going. I don't know why, just at the moment it's all these dudes with just gigantic guts and Kobe with his 8-pack, just like, even Toki.
Anyway, so Toki, not Wartooth, not a bumblebee. Maybe she is a bumblebee. She's not Toki. They're talking a little bit. She says, yeah, I don't know where I was born. I just know that my parents' homeland was Wano. I mean, there's nowhere else for me to go. So that's why I'm trying to head back there. Although Odin warns her, well, I'm not sure we're going there for a while. But she says, just being around you makes me feel like I've already reached my destination. And he's like, why do you say that? And I do like how, people are watching him this go on and they're like, ooh, sparks are flying. And it's like, what are you guys talking about? So it's cute. I do like them bonding like this before they just have a baby in the next couple of pages. It's like, all right, there's a little bit of relationship developing and this is a montage. So I do like seeing a little bit of time dedicated to this. So, Whitebeard is being pursued by the Navy while this is going on. Odin is like, why don't we just fight them? And Whitebeard's like, there's a lot of them, that's why. And he says, hey, if they're if there's an organization that controls the world, they must be full of mighty men. And Whitebeard's like, well, you can use the voice to decide for yourself. And, your country is still free for now. In the second year of travels, he and Toki have had a child by this point. This, of course, ends up being Momonosuke, but they're trying to think of different names, and Owen just keeps on trying to name different foods that they can use for, Odin ingredients, because One Piece names are weird. Izo is kind of scolding him, saying, you're a wanted criminal. You should go back to Wano. Protect your wife and child. He's like, no, I'm not done yet. I do like the Dogstorm and Cat Viper are talking over this newspaper, and Cat Viper's like, there's these newspaper thingies, and they never mention Wano. And Dogstorm's like, that's because there's no way for information to get out of the country. It's just like on Zoe. It's like, well, yeah, duh. Then Whitebeard's crew gets so large that eventually, divisions are formed, and Whitebeard is like, I'm putting you in charge of the 2nd Division, Odin. And he's like, he makes the same disgusted face as when Toki wanted to go back to Wano. And I love that the way of them convincing him to do it is just going, do it! Just everyone hangs up on it, like, take responsibility for something. We also cut over to more people, showing up on the ship, including fucking Marshall D. Teach. And more and more happens with Odin. I like how Odin is still just so irresponsible. He rushes on shore as soon as they land somewhere, and they're like, you're the leader of a freaking division. You should not be doing this. Like, no, I've got to see the world. And then we get to see what's actually going on in Wano while all this is going on. Sukiyaki is in critical condition, and so he's saying to everyone, like, I want the next shogun to be Odin, but with his absence, if anything should happen to me, I'm going to need a proxy to rule until he returns. So I'm going to choose a man whom Odin has doted upon like a younger brother, Kurozumi Orochi. And Yasuye is like, what the fuck is he talking about? And of course, everyone was reacting with shock. And Orochi shows up, and he's got this formal kimono on, and he says, I'm being given this opportunity to repair my clan's dishonor. I owe so much debt to Lord Sukiyaki and to Odin. So for the sake of atoning for my grandfather's clan's crimes, I pledge to use my ability, meager as it is, to prepare the throne for his ascension. So I shall just sit in place on the throne, and I shall just sit inert upon it and wait for his return. That is all. I just beg for your assistance until then. And Yasuye is like, you're a Kurozumi? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry that I hid this. And so we get a flashback within a flashback, gasp, to when Orochi came across this hag. I mean, she's a hag. That not just in appearance, but in role in this story, who can, has all this knowledge of the history of the clans and stuff. And basically what she says is that, so you don't know what happened to your grandfather. So he was killed by the Kozukis. And so Orochi's like, well, he must have committed some sort of crime to get that punishment. And he's like, what crime is it in a squabble for political power? He who stands at the top writes the rules, and just like that, a crime is no longer a crime. The previous shogun of the Kozuki clan did not sire any children. He had no heir. The 5 daimyo clans who served Kozuki were restless. Who would be the next shogun? Each of them harbored hope that he would be the one, but your grandfather was prepared to poison all of those rival daimyos. One after another they vanished, seemingly perishing in civil war, and the shogun, anguished by the death of his loyal daimyos, took sick from stress. The plan was working, but just when it seemed as though his ambitions would be realized, the shogun's baby and heir was born, Kozuki Sukiyaki, accursed Sukiyaki. Not only did Kurozumi fail to become shogun, the plan came to light, and your grandfather was forced to commit seppuku. The clan was cut off from power. Lands, castle, titles, all confiscated. Everything taken. The Kurozumi name was lower than dirt, and the clan was tossed into the street, belittled by all. And whose fault is it that you live in poverty? Whose fault? And Orochi immediately agrees it was a Kozuki Sukiyaki's fault for being born. And she's like, that's right. If it weren't for him, you would have been shogun one day. And Orochi is immediately taken with this idea. And so he starts to say, like, so who are you? Are you like from the Kurozumi? And she's like, who I am doesn't matter. I have been out of the country and it's been a terrible ordeal. But just look at my face. And suddenly her old appearance transforms into a beautiful woman's. And then it transforms into Orochi himself. And she says, this is a power conferred to me by something called the clone fruit. Dun, dun, dun. And so she says, if you do as I bid you, I can give you power, the power to make you shogun. She also presents him with another devil fruit. And Orochi says that he will do anything. And she's like, all right, make preparations. And so we see in this montage of events, as, Yasuo is looking over things, that Orochi approached Odin various times asking for money, and Odin, with his weirdly generous heart, kept on giving him the money because he was in need. And so with this, he was able to amass power, produce weapons, and eventually the woman took the guise of Odin and would claim, "Oh, this man is like a brother to me." She took the appearance of Sukiyaki and was like, "Oh, if anything should happen to me, you must take over Orochi." And so they manipulated everyone and made it seem as if this was both Odin's and Sukiyaki's wishes that Orochi should take up this position and have this power when Sukiyaki did die. So that sucks.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff to come out of this. She has the same fruit Mr. 2 has. So the implication would seem to be that she's died or the fruit has passed on since then, because this is a flashback that took place more than 20 years ago. So the expectation would be that she doesn't have the fruit anymore because Mr. 2 had it more recently than that. But who really knows who she is? I mean,
this could be Mr. 2 for all we know.
I mean, it would
Probably
seem
not,
weird, but yeah, I mean, I guess theoretically it could.
We cut ahead a little bit in the flashback at the very end of the chapter to the 4th year of Odin's journey, and now, of course, both Hiyori and Momonosuke have been born. And they see, as they come ashore on an island, that all of the wild animals are running away. And we see that, oh my gosh, it is Gold Roger's crew, and he's there with Kid Shanks and Buggy and all of the people who are known to have been with his crew.
Nick,
and
how many of the characters can you name? Not Buggy and Shanks.
Gold Roger.
There's Silver's Raleigh.
More than 0. Fuck you, Chris. Raleigh's.
There's Silver Raleigh's. There's Crocus, the doctor. I think that's supposed to be Yasop there behind him. I don't see the fast bet. I can't tell if it's supposed to be the guy with the dreadlocks. Might be there, Yasop, but he doesn't look super like him. But no,
because he's part of Shank's crew in the prison. So. Yeah.
And what's the Fast Ben something? God damn it! I couldn't remember them all. I'm a failure.
So this is going to be the incident, of course, where Odin and Gold Roger met and ended up working together, presumably. So the Rocks Pirates thing.
I'm very interested to find out what happens. This is very exciting. Period.
I do really like the information we got. I also do really like the information we got in terms of Orochi's rise to power, just how much he was manipulating stuff and how awful a person he is that he just immediately took this hag's version of events, like, oh yeah, it's that asshole's fault for being born, that my traitorous father who murdered his co-workers basically in cold blood in a grab for power, why I'm not the shogun. Fuck all of them. It's not my grandfather's fault for doing something. He so quickly turns from, oh, you must have done something wrong. Like, no, he was totally right to do that.
It makes sense, because at first you're kind of like, oh, like this woman's clearly manipulating him, so maybe like you kind of start to feel a little bad for Orochi, until you see he very easily works the logic along to be like, no, you're right, I do deserve everything. Fuck that guy. I hope he dies. I'm gonna help kill him.
Gotta have this, you can't have him suddenly turn sympathetic in this flashback.
No. So well, that's what I mean when I'm like, it's nice that, because I was worried that was going to be what happened. I was like, no, the justification is still there. He definitely took advantage of the situation to justify his own greed.
All right. And we're running a little bit late, so we should wrap things up here. Favorite chapter, MVP.
I'm going to give my favorite chapter to, I'm going to give it to Chainsaw Man, because I really, really liked it. And I'm going to give my character of the week to, I'll give it to Uruka from We Never Learn, because I really like that chapter as well, and I think her whole speech is the big reason I like it.
I'm going to give my favorite chapter to... Go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe I'll do Obara, actually, but I'm going to stick with Uruka.
One Piece is going to be my chapter of the week. I really like the way that things unfold in this chapter. There was a lot of jumping around and a lot of events to cover, but I really like the conversation between Orochi and the ghost fortune teller hag. This guy's awful person. I'm not sure exactly what you want to call her. Miko, a little bit. I don't think she gets named in this entire thing because he does ask her, "Who the hell are you?" And she's like, "It doesn't matter." So, and Uruk is also my character of the week because, yeah, I mean, that speech that she gives about everyone getting, ties everything together does make that chapter really effective. Yep. So.
The audience picked Denji as their character of the week, and Act Age.
Totally understandable.
Act Age was their series of the week, which leads me to our recommendation for next time, because we had mentioned we were going to get into it. Act Age will be our next recommendation as we catch up on the series so that we can then add it to the recap, and then everybody will be able to say, why aren't you guys reading Act Age? Act Age was the best series this week. You should be reading Act Age. They can't say it anymore because we'll have been reading it.
And that should probably be the first recommendation that we cover in the new year, guys, because there's only one more Week of Manga recap if we do it all next week. I know that there are chapters next week, but next Wednesday is Christmas. So if we do it, we might have to do it on a different day of the week, or we might just hold off on the chapters until like New Year's Day or something. I don't know. We got to figure that out. So. Yeah. All right, all. That's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. Thank you all for joining us for the recording here at smashcast.tv/RoloT, twitch.tv/RoloT, where we do the show Wednesdays around 7:30, 8 p.m. Eastern time in the evenings. You can follow us for updates at WMR Podcast on Twitter. Your hosts are at RoloT and at Nick F. Time. You can check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. Be sure to send us feedback, ask us questions for Q&A episodes, suggest manga for us to read. Do that on the Discord server or on weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com via email. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters and to the people who help make Weekly Manga Recap what it is. NGX3i for maintaining all of the spreadsheet data and stuff. You can check out WMR polls on Twitter for votes on favorite moments from the podcast and that kind of thing. Special thanks to Steve Man, our tile artist. You can check out his work in a bunch of different places. He draws boobs, but not on I Draw Boobs at Tumblr anymore because they don't let him draw boobs on there. Bastards. Infamous Planet for the frame of the visual edition of the show. And the creators of the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap, Milo Jack Stillitz. You can check out his SoundCloud, and Wednesdale Cheddar. Check out their YouTube.
All right.
And as Chris said, Actage is coming. So
Actage, yeah, let's go. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.